Enjoy the show. Play on my channel.
Editing a podcast I did before, just before this, which was with Luke Stone of
really?
FundMyComic. Yeah, man, he was such a great guy.
Luke's a great guy.
I loved having him on, and I thought this is so serendipitous because I'm editing and I'm putting the image of his comic or his comic site, and right in the corner thumbnail, I'm like, oh shit, I'm having him on today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Luke is a good guy. Yeah, that's another one of the reasons, and I could talk about it, on or off, whatever. But one of the reasons why I wanted to be on there, I know if I launch on like most other sites, I'm not going to be on that front page. But here,
that's what I love about that. Everybody, there's no algorithm to the front page. Everybody, they just boop, 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 boop.
Yeah.
And it really, I love this site. I mean, I've checked out Kickstarter. I've checked out Indiegogo. This one is really like user friendly.
Yes, it's user and more importantly, I mean, well, I don't want to say more importantly, because that's not necessarily more important, but very much so creator friendly. In that I have heard nightmare stories from Kickstarter and Indiegogo in terms of customer service. Mm-hmm. I can't say the same thing about FundMyComic. I've had people say that they've had like trouble with certain stuff backing, and I told them, I'm like, reach out to me, I will get in contact with the owner. Which it's like that. I can't say that with.
Oh yeah, you can. One thing that I did like when I'm doing some research into you, when I was just doing a podcast with Raz, and he said, "Hey, you gotta have Vaughn Coleman on."
Oh yeah. Raz is a good guy.
I've known him since 8th grade.
Oh wait, so did you go to school with my mom then? Or no, sorry, I forgot. My mom went to school with her husband. I mean, his wife.
Yeah. Right. So I was in. Me and my brother moved out to Oxford, and we were Chuck and Charlie Stoney on WMMR back in 2001, 2002, and stuff. So I was going into the studio, driving from Chester County into Philly, into Bala Cynwyd, going into the studios with Raz every Friday at the 420 Marathon, and that's when I met Raz, and he is awesome. He is such a great guy, and I know when Raz tells me to have somebody on, I'm like, I got to listen to Raz on this one. He's got something here, because your artwork alone is impressive.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for it. Unfortunately, I'm just the artist. I mean, I'm just the writer. Not the artist, but I spent a lot of time even just making sure my artist, was like going through deciding on my artist, and I mean he's been amazing, not just on the page but even outside of that. Great guy. Always one of the things that I thought was so important about finding an artist or just creative team in general, I want to make sure, especially in an age like today that where everyone's so disconnected, that this is someone who could talk on the phone, or someone who we could go back and forth, have conversations about how do you envision it. Oh, I was thinking more like this. Oh, that's actually better than what I had in mind. That kind of stuff. And and the results, I think, speak for themselves. And
well, I don't have a lick of artistic talent. I can storyboard. That's it. But I did a little bit of writing for Frank, because he was Punisher War Journals inker and a whole bunch of stuff. Sleepwalker for Marvel back in the day. And he has his own comic, Caribe the Hunted. And that's where the title of this podcast, Tales of the Hunted, came from. Because I was just podcasting with Frank, and he said, hey, we should have this guy on. We should have on Aleem. Aleem, legit. Absolutely. And now Aleem, Michael Florio, through all these different comic book indie artists, I want to keep this podcast as a hub for indie content creators.
Awesome, dude. And I'd love to have you on, by the way, if you want to. I was at Free Comic Book Day. I should have been looking for your name, but I did see some Punisher War Journal. Who did you ink? Who did you ink over?
A guy named Kelly Krantz, where he was doing Sleepwalker.
Okay.
A guy named Melvin Ruby on Punisher War Journal.
Wait, Mel Ruby?
Melvin Ruby.
Hang on, because Mel Ruby did Hunter Ninja Bear, which is the first comic I ever edited.
Oh, really?
I didn't know he did Punisher War. Hold on, this is crazy. If this is true, this is such a. It's so interesting seeing how big and also how small the comics world is in such a way where like everyone is connected. I mean, hell, I've been here how, like, not even I'm like a nobody, and I've already been like, oh, I have connections to, I'm always surprised. Yes, that's crazy. Okay, I didn't know his name
Yeah.
was Melvin. Actually, I always knew him as Mel.
Yeah, I just know, but I read one of his later credits is just Melvin. So I guess that's where Mel comes from. But yeah, Melvin Ruby is Punisher War Journal and a few other artists. I don't even remember.
He's criminally underrated. No, Mel,
Yeah.
penciled the first comic I ever worked on, which was as an editor for Hunter Ninja Bear. So,
Oh wow.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
tell my up.
I will tell him you said hi, absolutely. Or tell you said what? I'm sorry, you cut out for a second.
What's up? How's it going?
All right, I'll tell him you said what's up then. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
So
yeah,
it's a really awesome little connection there that you do get, especially when I see Frank do it with people that come on the podcast, and it's just you connect in a way. It's one of those things that helps build the movement, like it's a movement, but the indie market forward, and it gives it that original creative flair. Because going from writing into now, hey, how does my thought actually come to you on the page?
Yeah.
Do you find that the artist do you have like a formula that you do? Do you just kind of, this is my idea, or do you kind of overly describe it, or do you let the artist have a lot more freedom?
It's all the above, and I'm figuring it out. This is my first comic, some pages, it often depends on the moment in the page. Sometimes there's an area of in between. I'm trying to get better at just letting the artist do their thing, but like I was maybe a little bit of a control freak, but I was also, I don't know though, because the first couple pages, I really gave them room to go, hey, I would write in a lot of description of what I want. And I said, hey, maybe this, maybe someone who was giving me feedback said I was a little conversational, but I thought that worked at the end of the day, because people love those opening pages. So the thing is, I can complain about how imperfect my process is, but the fact of the matter is, looking at the results, I'm very happy with it. Right.
That matters. That's what counts.
And some pages I'm more like, I'm learning to get more lax, as the project has gone on, better at just going, yeah, it's good. But I do like to give feedback, and I also, especially as I go further along, I'm more likely to kind of go, okay, the art is done. If I need to change the dialogue around, I'll do that, because that's easy. That's as easy as a word balloon. Rather than having them redraw. But like that's why I try and catch whatever I can in the thumbnail stage. But my artist has been great. I think it's important. There's a lot of, one thing I'm learning, especially with how little, I have no artistic talent, right? But like one thing I'm learning is how many layers there are to being a comic book artist. And what I mean by that is like, okay, so you got to, obviously all the anatomy and understanding how to draw everything, sequential storytelling, but there's also visual, like there's so much that goes into it. And so I think there's a lot that goes into writing, and I truly do. It's two different levels of storytelling, which is why writer artists are like some of the most talented. Anyone who's a writer artist inherently will have an advantage, because they'll be able to see things in a way that I can't, from both the telling and an artistic standpoint. And those people deserve to, be the top dogs. Like Frank Miller, obviously, Walt Simonson. Like you look at people like that, they deserve to be the kings of the castle, right?
Absolutely.
Frank Miller, even though Frank Miller, for example, and I don't think, even Frank will say his art isn't always necessarily pretty, but it's beautiful, and in the way that the storytelling, like I have his Daredevil stuff always right here. I pull stuff off from my shelf and be like, oh, how would this kind of look on the page? And be like, okay.
Sure. Why not? Why not go for someone who's, been down the road before, instead of hacking your way, trying to find, new ground. Someone's already done it,
Yeah.
Just let it filter through you, and you'll be your own self still.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I always feel like pulling from the masters that came before me is like the best way to do it.
Sure.
And I think everyone does, whether consciously or subconsciously, right? I mean, like my favorite writer, the one who really got me into writing comic books, is Chris Claremont.
Oh yeah, love Chris
Yeah,
Claremont.
yeah.
How can you
So
not? How can you not look to him? You know?
yeah. I mean, and also whenever I'm feeling insecure about how many word balloons I put on a panel, I'm like, oh no, no, he did it, so it's cool.
It is a graphic novel.
Yeah. And look, people can complain about it a lot, but it's like, you still read it? Yeah. Did you still
Yeah.
like it? Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Now that being said, there's stuff I do. Like, do I need to know how Colossus's powers work every single issue? No.
Every other panel, every other story part. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
There was.
probably not.
I was like,
that was just kind of done years ago, you know. Then they referred to that issue at whatever it came from, you know. So like,
yeah, it used to be, or every time Nightcrawler would teleport, it'd be like, with the crack of flame and the stench of brimstone. It's like, yeah, I could see it visually.
Yeah.
But thank you. Like you could just see that he disappears and he's somewhere else, like he teleported. But thank you. It's still the thing is, I remember it though.
Yeah,
I remember it. I will say that. Yeah, Bamf. See, even down to the sound effect, we remember it.
Yeah. Which have you checked out X-Men '97?
I haven't yet. I've been meaning to.
So
I know.
good.
I have heard because they've done. What have they done so far? Trial of Magneto, Inferno. First of all, how the hell do you do Inferno in one episode?
Genocide of Geonosia.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that run. That's Morrison's run, correct?
Believe so. It was the Grant Morrison. But what they pull from, they're pulling from the comics, but it's still going with that feel from that X-Men '96. You know, See, it's so good. I highly recommend every comic book fan to watch X-Men '97.
I've been meaning to.
Chef's kiss. That's how you do a comic book anything.
I might go ahead and watch it after this. We'll see. I have some work to do, but I do want to do it, especially because I know I'm gonna like it. I mean, everyone likes it. What have they done so far? Inferno, Trial of Magneto, from what I've seen. Life, Death. I mean, that's great stuff. I mean, so I read Giant Size X-Men #1, and I was at film school at the time. And I think that it was like that, and then I read into Claremont's run. And then I think it was just the nonstop flow of ideas, the storytelling, and the fact that you could keep going. And I was always a big budget idea thinker. I loved superheroes. I love action. I love all that. And I was like, so you can actually, like, if I want a page of a script, okay, whatever is happening on that page of the script, could cost thousands, however much, or it could cost a little bit, right? But if a comic book, whether it's two people talking or whether it's like an entire war scene or cosmic battle, it's still just whatever the art cost is, right? And so it was like that was like a big determining factor, and I could get these ideas out faster. And I also, here's the thing, that only goes so far, because if I don't love the medium, because you can tell there are a lot of writers, especially now, that see the success of comics, that you could tell they just don't really care about comics. They're just doing it to get their ideas out there. That's not me. Like, I genuinely love comics. Like, I wouldn't spend, all this like and to the point where I remember when I was transferring this idea that was a screenplay at one point to comic book format, and I was realizing the differences in the mediums. And instead of going, comics suck, I was like, whoa, there are things that I can't do in a comic book that I can do in a movie. But there are also things I can do in a comic book that I can't do in a movie.
Well, it's different,
both mediums more, because I was like, it just, like, for example, if someone walks into a room and sits down, you just write that down in the screenplay, right? In a comic book, you have to say, how many panels do I want that to be? How do I want to pace that? That takes up this much. And it really made me realize the moment to moment to moment. And in a way, I feel like it actually made me a better filmmaker too, because I'm able to now think of it in images. Also, I had to learn to not see every single action like in the aspect ratio of a film, because comic pages are different, which actually meant that It's really nice, and it's similar. I actually find artists, like looking at artists, almost similar to my cinematographer. Although I'd say they're more involved in some ways, not in any way knocking cinematographers, but like in the sense that they're literally creating the look of the characters. There's no wardrobe department, right, or anything like that. And I feel like I'm horrible with cinematography. I tried to learn, but I was like, it's just not my thing. I'm more of the idea writer, director. I like to act too. But I felt the same thing with the artist. I could direct it. I could tell them the feel I want to go for, what I want in mind, and then I think it's someone who has that visual, like, talent to do it. I think it's also, I just don't know if I have the discipline and patience to draw. I say that because there have been multiple times in my life, like I have 2 copies of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and I'm like, I'm gonna draw it. I am now a 24-year-old man, and I have yet to really go through that book. So
Hey, you got time.
Yeah, you got a little time, dude.
yeah.
But that's the thing is, I think finding people that are collectively passionate about a project is and it's it's an important way. It's very big,
Yeah.
I've been looking at all these awards from the comic awards, and I did the intro and graphic the intro and category videos for the awards. So I got to see all these comics of these finalists, and all of them are pretty much like 5, 7 people, 4 people. There's many different people involved in that comic, and like you're saying, the layers to get that, even to where my guy from Canada, Badger. Damn, I just saw him. I just saw this thing the other day.
Who does the book?
Yeah, He does the book Badger. What was his?
Oh, Mike Barron. Right?
No, not that Badger. It's a different Badger.
Different Badger. Okay.
Yeah, a different Badger. But like Steven Russell, he was another one that reached out to me for this. Oh, I forget that guy's name right now. Damn it. I literally just heard his name as I was editing. That's why, dude, I'm sorry. But I'm mentioning it because you look at people like them to where they're in Canada. I think Steve's not in Canada. But he reached out to me for just have an advertisement in his comic. Like, hey, Pajangas Wall Hangers in my comic? I'm like, I gotta find, I gotta budget that, but I think I could swing that, dude. You know what I mean? That's something I didn't think of, but it's that interconnectivity of a lot of indie artists want to be on podcast, having this as an indie hub, that is only a benefit that I get, much like getting all the free comics for,
that's awesome.
It was so cool.
That's really cool.
Because they're like awesome. The best of the best. And I'm like, I'm going to put your cover and I'm going to put 2 of your pages. So I got to find the best pages. I have to work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a burden, but now I have to work.
You have to read comics. And, it's really cool. I remember I used to do that. I'd be like, oh, I'm having this person on. And it'd be like, oh, I have to read their work. But I'd get excited because I'm like, I get to read their work and then talk to them about it. So, like, I remember I was having Graham Nolan on my show, and I was like, I've been putting off reading the first appearance of Bane. I've read stuff with Bane, and I was like, all right, well, here's my chance. So I did that, and then I read his first Detective Comics that he did with Chuck Dixon, and it was just really cool. It's always cool, going back and reading someone's work.
It's awesome. What's the name of your show?
It's just Vaughn Coleman Presents. You just go on my YouTube channel and look up Vaughn Coleman, and it's just I upload all kinds of stuff. I'm about to upload a video essay that I spent way too much time on. It's just it's on Final Fantasy VII, but it's unrelated.
Okay.
But,
nice.
I'm a gamer at heart. Final Fantasy VII is my business partner, Christopher Bristow, is not his favorite. I think his is 6. Was it 6 or 7? No, his was 6.
Okay, 6 I hear is one of the I gotta play 6. But I just felt like doing this video essay talking about it. I was like, oh, I'll just like gush about it quickly. That turned into 49 pages, which turned into a 2 hour video.
49 pages.
Yeah, so I that video is. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm uploading that video. But I mean, it's been so fun creating, and I'm such a big fan of it. The new Final Fantasy VII game was coming out, and I was like, wait a minute. There's a scene in like the cover of the game is like someone looking up at a futuristic reactor, or well, technically it's like a building, but like there's reactors in the game, and I was like, well, my character does that in the comic. It's a blonde guy looking up at a. I was like, why am I not doing a parody homage cover to that? So I was like, we're gonna do that. And so I hired an artist, and so that is one of the variant covers you see. And all the variant covers are campaign exclusive, and then the main cover isn't. But there is a mini print. There's a free mini print that comes with anyone who backs the campaign early. Because one of the things I realized was, okay, I mean, because the book is funded, right? The book is funded, but it's like a pre-order thing, and it's a lot of people I know who follow me are into crowdfunding. So it's more of like a pre-order. But one of the things is like anyone who's willing to spend money on a creator that's unproven. As both a writer and a publisher. Although I did like a short story as a writer. But anyone who's willing to do that and on an IP they don't know should get a little something extra, right? You're backing it before it's even out, before you even heard a single review of it. And so I was like, well, anyone who does that deserves a little bit of extra. And so I wanted to give exclusive variant covers and also give a mini print for people like that. So
that's
nice.
Awesome. Especially that's nice. Adding little variants like that. I really like that, of having, game moments and having that as a cover variant. That's so cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love doing that. I'm going to get more and more as I go on. But it's like, I'm also afraid, because at first it was like, variant covers are annoying. But then as a creator, I'm like, well, I know this artist. I do want to work with them, but I can't get them to do a whole thing. I'll just have them do a cover. And I'm like, so this is why they do it.
Yeah.
Because and it's also, look, there's obviously the motivation that it's like, oh, I have to sell 50 extra well, I could just get the same person to buy, but it's like, I don't really want to do that much. I'd rather spend that on, but I hit a limit where I'm like, okay, no more variant covers after a certain point. I'm gonna do one more for a Kickstarter variant when I do launch that, but otherwise, that's it. And the variants, I want them to be variants. They're limited, so you can get the main and the variants are $5 more than the main cover. The main cover is $20. The variants are $25, and it's a 68-page book, 64 of story, and then 4 extra. There's an art contest, and the winner of the art contest will get put in the book. I'm really, I think building a sense of community and a sense of outreach, that's the thing that's the most work that people don't. There's so many great writers and artists that put their heart and soul into the work, but no one knows about it because they don't know how to market, or because they're, a lot of people, and to their credit, they're very introverted, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the business doesn't always support that, but you hear about people like Steve Ditko, right? And the crowd, I don't know that Steve Ditko would have been able to do a crowdfund, but he did create some of the greatest characters ever.
Yeah, he did.
But, he also was very private to the point where I think they treated him like almost like a JD Salinger. Although I've heard very nice things. I work with Renee Witterstater. I'm not sure if you know her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume so. Everyone knows. Yeah, everyone knows Renee. I worked with her and Michael Golden at a lot of cons, and she told me that she met like Steve Ditko once, and he was like very kind to her. But she didn't know who he was. It was just some guy named Steve who stopped by the office and was like, oh yeah, my name's Steve. He's like, whatever. And she was just talking like she had lost a loved one and whatever. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm here for you, whatever. And he goes, well, Renee, it was very nice meeting you. My name is Steve. And then he walks out, and then someone goes, do you know who that was? She was like, I don't know. That was just Steve. He goes, yeah, Steve Ditko. And she was like, what?
Yeah, that's probably why he did it.
That's what he was. He didn't want fame. He could have been famous if he wanted to. He just he was a humble guy, right? And that's I don't know. There's just something really cool about that. I love his work. I mean, I've read his Spider-Man run, and then I have runs I'm diving between. I'm catching up because listen, I was born in '99, so I'm a little late to the party. All the best stuff, I'm not saying there wasn't good stuff after, but a lot of the best stuff came out before me. How all of Claremont's run. I have to read. I read like the beginning of Romita's, so I want to read all of Stan Lee's Spider-Man. I have like a list of the essential runs, which are like finishing Claremont's run. I want to finish all New Teen Titans. Stan Lee's Spider-Man.
You want to tell him how you got in at Marvel, Frank? Who the first person you met you worked for was?
Oh, who's that?
One of the guys was an inker named Art Nichols, and I was working in Midtown Manhattan in an art supply store, and I became his apprentice. And eventually I got through him into Marvel as the correction department under John Romita Sr.
Wow. How's that?
It was great. It was really, really super nice. Super nice guy. So it's possible. I mean, you don't know who a lot of the artists are. I mean, they don't wear their idols on their forehead, so you have no idea. I met Art Nichols because he had a button of, because it was Batman. It was 89 and Batman came out, and I'd never seen anybody with a button like that. I said, "Hey, cool button, man. Where'd you get it?" And says, "Oh, I work over at DC Comics." So that's how it started. That's it. I had no idea. So
that's so cool. That's really cool. I'm a huge Batman fan too. Yeah, I mean, Batman's like how I first really got into comics. It's my shelf. It's just you can't see it. My DC stuff is like up here, but I'm a huge Batman fan. Batman Hush was the first comic I ever read.
Oh, I love Hush.
Yeah,
Hush
me
is
too.
so good. I went through on Amazon and I would just buy what I wanted because of Batman the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, all that. I centered. All right, let me check out Spider-Man. Whoa. Okay. Let's start at Batman. What do we want to do with Batman? I mean,
Batman's easy to jump into.
Yeah. Killing Joke, 3 Jokers. I mean, there's so many. Hush. There's a lot of really
Long
good.
Halloween.
Oh, that's so good. It was way better than what they tried to do with anything with the Batman movie, but
I don't think they'd be that risky. I don't think that they'd be that risky with some of the other more other stories, in Batman. It's very nice, but it's also very almost dull. Done that, seen that. It's just like either stick to the comic book or just go off trail, but don't walk the both lines. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've yet to do a perfect Batman on screen. I'm very much
agreed. Yeah.
I think that Batman the Animated Series is probably that, and the Arkham games are the greatest depiction of the character.
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. Kevin Conroy. God bless him.
God bless him, man. Way up there. He has been the perfect personification of Batman, because even when you look at his television, at his TV pop in there on the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, he had Kingdom Come style Batman. He was that beat up, still way better than what we got in the Flash movie. It's just
I didn't even watch the Flash movie. I was at a comic book convention the weekend that came out, and no one cared.
Oh no!
The Flash movie came out. Like, I think one person across me goes, "Yeah, I saw it. It was so bad." Like, I heard it was.
Yeah, it was really
because it got put. That idea got put through the meat grinder so much of Hollywood. It just it trickled out into that. They're like, "Look, I'm done."
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Flashpoint. Well, first of all, I was like, why is it just called if you're gonna make a movie that's just the Flash, just do a Flash movie. Don't do Flash he has a great rogues gallery, he has a great lore, but it's like, no, you have to have Batman be the selling point in the Flash movie. Like, I love Batman. He's my favorite fictional character of all time. He shouldn't be the main character in every movie. He should be the main character in the Batman movies.
Yeah.
He should not. In the Flash movie, you're gonna make him the selling point? Really? Like,
but we really want Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I mean, I like Michael Keaton is great. I do think, like I said, I don't think there's a perfect Batman. I don't like that they insist on making Batman kill in these movies.
He doesn't kill. That's what the Christian Bale, and he's got machine guns.
What in the Christian Bale one?
It puts him to sleep. In that Batmobile, there was like, there were turrets in that shit.
Oh, I don't. I gotta rewatch it.
The Bale movies, they tried to make it more. They tried to make it more like a Batman in the real world, which I get, but
I'd rather Batman in Batman world personally.
Yeah, in Gotham. Even The Watchmen has better portrayal of Gotham, I feel.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Actually, that's really interesting. I think that the new Batman I did really like, though. I don't think it was perfect, but I think the look of really Gotham was very good. I think I like that it was a detective film.
I like the pull out of year one, how Gotham has, hey, we had to add walls to keep this water back. And that being still the point of the Riddler's whole thing.
Yeah. I need to read Zero Year. I've read year one, but I haven't read Zero. I've read part of Zero Year. I didn't read the Riddler part, which is weird because Riddler's probably my favorite Batman villain, so I should get around to that.
Yeah, Joker's my favorite Batman villain.
I think he's the best Batman. I mean, I think he's arguably the greatest villain of all time in general. I think one of the reasons why is he's just like you could do so much with that character. He's just like the perfect embodiment of what a villain should be. That he's just pure chaos.
Because he is John Doe. You don't know his backstory. You don't know if he's messing with you.
Yeah, that's why
you can't really know because he is the king of all sociopaths. He's the opposite to Batman. The yin to his yang.
Absolutely. I mean, he's the most he's one of the most perfect villains. I would say him. Obviously, Magneto is up there too. I mean, he's
because Magneto was right.
You think? See, I know people keep saying that after the latest episode. I don't know if I'm there.
I mean, I've never personally thought Magneto was right. I mean, this guy's been damaged, son. Damaged.
Yeah. He's exactly. He's I mean, he's such a great character though, because you can understand him and Joker. I feel like are on opposite sides of the scale in terms of villains. Like Magneto is he's got points. There's good in him. There's no good in the Joker, and there should never be good in the Joker. I don't think that. I think he's pure evil, and that's how he should be.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he can't occasionally feel baddish for him, but he is supposed to be like almost like to the point of the Killing Joke. He's like, even if he had the chance to redeem himself, he wouldn't take it because he doesn't want to. He's just pure evil. I don't think Magneto has tried. He fails. Like obviously, you have to try with Magneto. He tries for a bit, but ultimately,
he does try.
He'll always go back.
But Magneto I'd say he's more evil, like lawful evil.
Yeah.
Because there's a purpose. He sees how bad humanity can get. And he's like, hey, guys, I just lived through this.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to stop? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's one of the most powerful mutants on Earth.
Yeah. And I think it was Uncanny X-Men 1, because what I didn't realize, one of the things why it was so cool going back to Claremont's run, because a lot of people went through it growing up. I did. Yep. So what was really cool was going back and knowing all this pop culture stuff and then seeing it be created for the first time. Like I didn't realize that Magneto's Holocaust, because it's the opening scene in the first X-Men movie, right? And realizing that it wasn't introduced as a concept that he was a Holocaust survivor until issue 150, where it's revealed after they fought him many times that, hey, this is someone who's lived. Oh my God! So so that's why he's doing that. And it's like, oh, it's a reveal. And then 10 issues or 11 issues after that, I think it was 161, where it's revealed that and on top of that, he and Charles Xavier knew each other. And on top of that, and then I love that it's going back to Claremont's run, that it's the reveal and then the reveal, and then, so Magneto was revealed to be a Holocaust survivor. Then he was revealed that he not only knew Charles Xavier, but they were in Israel. They met in Israel together, trying to heal this other Holocaust survivor who was a mutant. And then revealed later that he and Charles had a relationship, and then revealing later that not only that, but they had a kid together that Charles didn't know about, who's Legion, right? Like I just love the story that everything is like. It's connected, but not in like, and this is one of the things growing up, and I think a lot of comic fans today, they get turned off almost because they're like, of course, any X-Men history is going to sound convoluted if you explain 60 years of history in a 10-minute YouTube video.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Like, because I'm like, people are like, wow, X-Men history is really, if you read it over the course of 16 years of worth of comics, it's easy to follow. Like Claremont's run is fairly like Inferno. If I were to describe the Inferno event to someone, they'd be like, "What?" But when I'm reading it, I'm like, "No, it all makes sense." I mean, but if I were to explain in a couple seconds that, like, so Scott had a wife, but then it turned out that she was a clone. But that's why I'm curious to see X-Men 97. How the hell they did Inferno in one episode?
They do it well.
They do it well.
Yeah, they do it real well. I love X-Men, and I wanted to see if you've read this one. I bought the omnibus of it, but it was I believe House of X and Fall of X.
So all right, so I'll tell you this. I read House of X when it came out, and at first I loved it. At first, I really loved it.
My first run through of the omnibus, I was like, "This is great." And I set it on the shelf because I have other stuff.
Now I hate it, and I'll tell you why. So when I read it, I knew the X-Men are going to be revealed to be brainwashed or something, because there is no conceivable way the X-Men would do what they're doing. The characters were so out of character, everything felt wrong, and I was like, "This is great! I can't wait for them to be revealed." And then it kept going, and I was like, "So is this just who they are now?" And I was like, "This is
they're just assholes." Yeah.
And I'm like, "This is not." I'm sorry. And then what I don't like is the gaslighting, where they're like, "Well, Magneto was always Charles Xavier was always a bad person." No, he wasn't. If you read the old comics, he was a very idealistic man that was flawed.
Yeah.
And that's why I personally, if you read my campaign page, I say that in an age of deconstruction, this is a reconstitution, because I feel that we've gone so far into cynicism that I felt like the character, for example, Kitty Pryde in the Marauders issues I read acted more like a bratty teenage girl than when she was a teenage girl, and this girl was supposed to be in her 20s, and I was like, and I told Chris Claremont that, and Chris Claremont is not happy with what they're currently doing.
I bet
he's pissed, and
they're tearing apart his legacy,
and they had their utopian society, and they're like, let's hire a guy who calls himself Mr. Sinister and a guy who calls himself Apocalypse. These are not their birth names, like an unfortunate birth names like a lot of comic characters have. He chose to call himself Mr. Sinister. He chose to call himself Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And our utopian society, let's bring them aboard. Like, what are you doing? Like, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, I was talking to Louise Simonson too. I was like, yeah, they're making Apocalypse good. She's like, yeah, I don't. He's bad. Like, she created Apocalypse, but it was it's weird. It's like I like the idea. I think the idea of it is great. I think especially if it was a new IP, I'd be all. But I'm sorry, when you have 60 years of history, it's there's things that they were saying. They're like, oh, it's always been this way. I'm like, no. I like a lot of I think there were some great moments. Like, one of my favorite moments of House of X is when the X-Men for the 5,000th time die, right? Which is like, oh yeah, I'm sure Wolverine's really dead this time, guys. But it's where they die, and then he has this moment. Professor X has this moment where he's like, no more, and he starts crying and freaking out. That is my favorite moment. It's so powerful. I love that moment. And I think Hickman is a great writer. I really do. But I was reading Claremont's run for the first time at the same time I was reading that, and I was like, if I had to choose one that I want, like, I'll just stick with Claremont. Like, and this isn't nostalgia. That's the thing. A lot of people will say, well, it's nostalgia. It's not.
Well, yeah, that's where I said, whoa, when I went into X-Men, because it started with Claremont, and I was like, this is brilliant. Like, Phoenix Saga is free on Amazon Prime. You can read it. And I did, and I was like, because before that, I watched the Chris Claremont X-Men documentary on Amazon, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Oh, you're responsible for that? Oh, man.
Yeah.
And the way that, I forget her name, the editor had to, like, go over to him and say, okay, and then what happened? And she would be typing, and he would
Louise Simonson?
Yes, Louise Simonson.
Because he worked with Louise and Ascenti.
Yes. They were both on too. I think that they had a point in the documentary where all of them together, and it was like, I told Frank, I felt like I was a fly on the wall at Marvel Writing Room when Frank was talking to Greg LaRocque and Mark McKenna, and I'm like,
yeah, it's great. I love that, man. I've met, because I've had the pleasure of, like, because I go to a lot of cons. I've met all three of them. I haven't met them all together, but I've met them all, and they're all so pleasant. The Simonsons are some of the most pleasant, sweet. Like, you will never hear a bad thing about the Simonsons. Like, they are the sweetest people. I love the Simonsons. Chris Claremont's great, Innocenti's great, and it's really cool just hearing their stories. I remember being on the Fly on the Wall, so I was working with Michael Golden and hearing them. They were just two friends, Chris Claremont and Michael Golden, were just talking about how, like, as friends, the time they created Rogue, and I was just sitting there, like, listening. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Like, it's just really cool. Like, oh, you remember you called me up that one time? It was just really interesting. It was really cool. But man, I mean, I'm a huge X-Men fan. I love X-Men to death, especially Claremont's.
Mm-hmm.
I might take a break after Claremont's, although I know a lot of people love Scott Lobdell's art. I mean, not art, his writing.
Yeah.
I know his X-Men in the 90s, from what I've heard, people love it and hate it both at the same time, is my understanding. The art I know when it's because Jim Lee, of course, like Jim Lee and Silvestri. Well, I would say it started with Art Adams. That whole, because even though people say it's like Jim Lee and Silvestri, I mean, those guys will all tell you they're inspired by Art Adams, who was inspired by Michael Golden. So in a way, Michael Golden is almost like the one that directly caused that whole 90s boom. But yeah, I do want to get to, so last issue of Claremont's run that I read was 268, so Madripoor Nights, which, by the way, that series has been great. I don't know if you guys have been reading that.
I haven't. No.
So he's reading a story, you know how like you see like Madripoor Nights, so like I'm talking the Captain America, Black Widow, and Wolverine. So it's like he's doing a mini series. It's like set like right after that issue where it's continuing their adventures in Madripoor, and it feels like. And this is one of the things that I think going to this whole timelessness thing, right? It's been what, like 30 years since that came out. I read Madripoor Nights issue 268, and then I closed the book, and then picked up the new one. And Claremont has not missed a beat. He writes. His writing has not dropped. He's still just as good as he was back in the day. Like it's so great.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so that's always really cool. And again, people will say, I think timeless stories, you know, you can't write, in my opinion, like obviously everyone writes within the time that they exist, right? But your goal, I think, is to write to transcend it, to be timeless. I think is one of the most important things. Like I look at a lot of the comics, and my favorite comics go from all decades. Like, okay, this came out in the 80s, right? Then 90s here, you got some 2000s here, you know, like all 60s. Like I have comics from all over. What unites it all is good storytelling.
Sure.
And I think
Yeah,
that's why I spent so much time revising my script and making sure, because you'll never get a second first impression. Now that being said, there was a point where I go, okay, if this is not going to be my best issue, inherently, I'll do everything I can to make it. But if I'm writing an ongoing series and my first issue is my best one, that's not good.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm gonna make it as good as possible. Like Dark Phoenix was 40 issues into Claremont's run, I think, right? And then Inferno was, God, that was, hold on, I have Inferno here. That was like 230 something. That was, Inferno is 239. Okay. So that's like more than 100 issues later. I think one of the things that made that run so special too was the momentum. The fact that it doesn't get, people will always say, "Oh, it's franchise fatigue." I hear that a lot now. I don't think that's true. If you're consistently interesting, people will follow you to the ends of the. Look at how many, because the same people that'll be like, "I'm sick of superhero stuff," will be like, "Oh, I just watched episode 1,000 of One Piece." I'm like, "All right, so."
Oh yeah, One Piece is the perfect example. Like, no, people are still watching One Piece. It's still going live. It started in the 80s. It's still going. Like Doctor Who, another perfect example. Good writing. Well, they did have a break because, 80s. Ooh, man, what a decade. But 90s weren't good to them either. 2005 and onward, they kind of really solidified the show again. I mean, the recent show before the current Doctor was a little bit lazy in the writing department, I felt. But there's if you have bad writing, it's what you're saying. It's so important. You can have the best artist in the world, but if he can't tell a story, it's not going anywhere.
That's the thing too. I mean, I've read some great comics. I'm sorry, I've read some horrible comics with some beautiful artwork. Mm-hmm. And I've read comics. I do think having a good artist is obviously key, but like, and this is, I mean, obviously I have my writer's bias, right? Like, you can have artwork that's not as good, and now I wanted to make sure I had great art regardless, because I felt that was important. But as a writer, there are a lot of writers that just go, "Oh, I just basically just pay for a good story if I just get it." And it's like, no, you have to really put in that writing. But like, for example, all right, one of the best examples, some of my favorite comic art ever is in one of the worst comics I've ever read in my entire life. That is You guys will know this one, and if you don't know it, God bless you for not knowing it because it's horrendous. Hold on a second. Where is it? All-Star Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder. You guys read that one?
It sounds familiar.
All right, don't read it. So it is. You would think it's. If I describe the creative team, you'll think it's a recipe for success. The people who came behind it thought it did too, and this is another thing. People need editors. Everyone needs editors. It's written by Frank Miller, art by Jim Lee.
Yeah,
You might think that's the recipe for success. This is
yeah.
one of the worst comics I've ever read in my entire life.
Okay.
It's so bad. If you look at, and it's like people joke about it all the time. Now, if I just show you pages of it, that looks beautiful. It is. It's a beautiful train wreck.
Beautiful book. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful book.
It's got some of my favorite comic art ever. But I'm also I'm looking at what's happening in the art, and I'm like, this is really bad. Like this is really bad. Like okay, here's Wonder Woman calling Superman. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in there. But it's bad. It's a stinker. But here's the thing. It's good. So even then there's good to pull from it. You could be like I remember I would have my my profile picture was like a panel Batman from this. People are like, that's a cool profile picture. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about, the dialogue is not there. So it's cool. It's a cool moment when you don't think about the context of the scene.
Absolutely.
So like
what's a project that you would want to work on? I always like to ask anyone, writer or artist in this industry. Marvel, DC, they knock up, they say, Vaughn, we want you to do your own project. What is the project that you're doing?
Here's the most important part. Here's a check.
Yeah. Check.
Okay.
Check's here.
Gotcha.
Project.
Okay. All right, so I have a few different. I'll give you a few answers. So the obvious answer I'll say is to start with is Batman. Because I have a million Batman ideas in my head that I do, but I'm also gonna go with and say I want to leave my stamp on a character that needs it. Because the fact of the matter is, whether I'm there or not, there's a million geniuses that will work on Batman. I think Batman will be okay. Here are some characters one character that needs a run, despite being one of the big three. Wonder Woman is a character that doesn't have enough iconic runs and stories, right? I've read 40 issues of Wonder Woman run. It was like Gail Simone, and then I think Pfeiffer before that. There was some good. Actually, even though Gail's run is more well known, I actually liked some of the run that came before because it had the villains. I would want to do something on Wonder Woman really badly because that's a character that they keep rebooting her, and it's like, dude, people don't know where to start, and by the time they do start, she's rebooted again or something. People don't care for how well known of a character she is. Look at her sales numbers, right? And it's like, it's because, I mean, like, look at how many times they've changed Cheetah's origin story. It's like she doesn't even have a consistent villain. It's like Joker, we got that Captain Cold, Reverse Flash, Sinestro, Lex Luthor. What's Cheetah's thing? People, they keep changing it, and so I think Wonder Woman would be a character I'd love to tackle. Batman is my favorite, so like he'd be my first choice, but I would love to tackle someone like Wonder Woman. That'd be a character I'd love to do. I'd love to do something with like Tim Drake, especially as Robin. I mean, he's my favorite Robin. In terms of Marvel, I mean, again, obviously, I think anyone would want to do Spider-Man. I feel like, though, editorial has a weird hatred for Mary Jane, so they wouldn't let Peter get with Mary. I don't know why. Like, can we just they were married? Like, can you just let them be married? Like, it's okay. Married people aren't boring. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why you can't let him have that going for him. Apparently, the Ultimate Spider-Man comic has them married, and everyone's saying it's the best thing out right now. So,
I believe that.
I have to read. Who else? All right, let's see. I don't know, because there's some things like for example, Daredevil, right? I don't know that I could even touch Frank Miller's work. Same thing. X-Men. There's so many ideas I have for X-Men, but if I was given the reign, I'd be like, can you just let Chris Claremont write it? Like, I don't think. Who else? God, but yeah, I'd say Batman, Wonder Woman, and then for Marvel, I mean, Punisher would be fun to write. Punisher is a character that I feel like, as long as there's evil in the world, so okay, forever you could just come up with something grounded, something real. But again, I feel like there's some really definitive runs on that. It depends, because there's a character like Batman where it's like the groundwork is so solid that it's almost like, yeah, and we can keep it going forever. So Batman is one I definitely love to write. Wonder Woman, God, I could think of more. I'd have to take Martian Manhunter would almost be someone I think would be really cool to tackle. He's such an underrated character. That bothered me when I was first getting into comics in around the New 52. They like booted him off as a founding member of the Justice League. Oh, Teen Titans! I would love to write Teen Titans.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird that I'm going specifically DC, but I think part of it is almost because one of the weird things is DC, their continuity. I don't know what is canon and what isn't. That would be another. I feel like before I write a character, I'd be like, can you guys just tell me what's canon, like so I know what to work with. The thing is, apparently, because I've talked to creators who worked at DC that have been like, yeah, man, we had this great plan, and then they just rebooted the universe, and I'm like, okay. So, like, for example, I was talking to Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, and they were like, yeah, we had plans. We were going to do the whole underground universe. They created this new Terra character, right? Which is a great character. And then right as they're getting their plan in order, they're like, all right, we're rebooting the universe. And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, in my lifetime alone, they've done Flashpoint. They've done, what have they done? How many crises have I lived through? Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Identity Crisis, Flashpoint, Rebirth, Dark Knight's Metal.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
What didn't they just do like Dark Crisis? So I've had like 7. Mm-hmm. How many did you get like growing up? Before that, there was like what between Infinite Crisis and Crisis on Infinite Earths? There was what, like 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
And did you feel like you needed like another universe altering crisis, or were you happy? Like, I feel like it's nice to know. I mean, I know. Well, you guys had like 0 Hour, right? That was one. But that was, even then, that wasn't a full reboot. I feel like DC hasn't had, until recently, the whole full reboot problem. I don't know. I don't even really keep track. If I'm interested, I'll read it. I'd love to do Catwoman and Batman getting together. I'd love to really solidify that. That would be really cool. Sorry, you got me gushing now that I'm thinking about what I'd write.
And it seems all DC.
That's weird because I'm not intending for that. I'm really not. I think that the current X-Men, honestly, I don't even know if I could touch them anymore. I would say X-Men, but like
about
genuinely, Thor. I need to read Walt Simonson's Thor. I would
do. What? You haven't read that, man?
No, dude, that's on my reading list.
That is a must. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard that. All right, I would do I'll tell you what. I would love to do an X-Men team of my own. I would love to do that. I'd love to. My first order of business would be retconning, and I'm sorry, I know you like House and Powers of X, but retconning all the Krakoa stuff.
Oh, get rid of that shit.
Yeah, that would be my first order of business. Now, my team, because I've thought about it, I'm like, who would I do? I would love to do something experiment. I'd love to have the Summers brothers, Cyclops and Havoc together. I'd love to have like Kitty Pryde. I'd do something like Forge, Archangel. Like, I'd really just like look at what are the characters that I just want to write, and I kind of do something with that. So X-Men, I'd love to do, whether it be X-Men or New Mutants, just anything in the X world, I'd love to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of characters I would love to do in Marvel. New Mutants are criminally underrated, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Criminally underrated character.
And that movie sucked.
Oof. I remember that movie was delayed so long that I went from not knowing anything about it to having read and caught up on it by the time.
It was very disappointing.
Yeah. Still is, you know.
I went from I didn't care at all to, by the time it was in theaters, I had read through the Demon Bear saga, and I was like, that's not right.
Now, the one thing I wanted to mention is the show recently that really got comic books right, and I have all 4 upstairs, Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Oh, is it? I've been meaning to read. That's another one. All right, my reading list. It feels like, because even though I have a full shelf, that I haven't read enough. Sandman is one that I have been told, like everyone basically on Earth, that is one of the most important ones to read. Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
I got through a little bit of the first one, but these are thick boys. So I gotta plan out. This is my reading day. Boom. You know.
All right, gotcha.
My brother recently got one of Spawn. It's like this thick. I'm like,
it's 30 years, 35 plus years.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
a big book. I mean, if you wait to compile them that long, that's 30 years of reading. I mean, it's basically,
they're so good.
A good sized novel that some people would polish off in 3-4 days. Mm-hmm. Some people a little bit longer, but 30 years, of comic books and just stories, it piles up. A lot. So, yeah, you just got to jump in and, do one and go for it.
And then eventually you're getting them checks coming in. And then royalty checks. And then, hey, we're doing a reprinting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my hope. The thing is, I own everything, so I created the company because I don't want to, have my stuff taken.
Yeah.
That being said,
that's what I did too, and I made my own company.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm creating my own. We'll see where it goes, but for now, that doesn't mean I'm never going to do work for hire. I would love to do work for hire, right? But in terms of this stuff, I want to keep it. I really enjoy it. I'm really liking what I've got, and that's my thing. Is with its longevity, right? Like I started reading Claremont's run however many years after he started.
Right.
My whole thing is like, even when I'm dead, I want people reading my stuff for the first time, right? I want to create something that lasts forever, and I think every creator should do that too. I think people, especially in an age of social media, really bank on instant gratification, and I think that is a huge problem because that's so detrimental to the arts. Like everyone wants to capture on the current craze. Well, newsflash: the current craze is not going to matter in maybe even a year, maybe even a week. Okay, it's not the news. It's the arts. It's different, right? You can look at, I don't know, statues and whatever. Like I'm sure there were trends at the time, whatever, but you could still look at it and there's art to it. Sistine Chapel, you don't go, oh, that was so whatever year that was done.
Van Gogh, okay.
Yeah.
You like colors.
Yeah. You got to transcend the times, you got to create within them, but then transcend them. And to be fair, you can there's always, and it's a double-edged sword because there's always going to be stuff that's dated, but you don't want to be afraid of that, right? Like, for example, I was reading the 60s Spider-Man, and Peter would be like, oh, that girl's beautiful, or she's a real whatever, and I'd be like, all right, hold on, put it down. Okay, oh, she was like a model. Okay, so he's saying she's hot. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
right.
Some of that old stuff is rough.
Yeah, there's a lot of, Stan Lee put a lot of cultural references that I'm like, all right. Chris Claremont would too. He'd be like, oh, this person is a real, what? All right, hold on. Who is this? All right, it's a celebrity. I will say celebrity references often. And that's why I'm like, all right, so I'm a writer. I like to act and all that too. But I think as a writer, often I feel like almost, and I'm not discounting movie stars, but often I feel like the writers, at least their work, my name would live on through my work, right? That's really important because it's nice being
muddle and mess with it along the way.
Oh yeah, that's another scary thing.
Then you're like, no, I don't want anything to do.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
That was not what I wrote. I don't know what they did. It was not it. Okay.
Yeah.
But they some of them, if they really want it, they hand you cut you an ugly check, and you learn to go, the mortgage is due.
Yeah, I do understand that too. It's also it's not like there is, like, I'm not oblivious to the fact that hard times happen and that sometimes the money does, and you could create something new if you make enough money. That's the thing. And
even if you don't have, you can always, if you're creative, you're creative.
Yeah.
Something will, if you put yourself to it and you apply your craft, the next one's, right at your fingertips or, not far away,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the thing too. I have other ideas like outside of this one. Even within this universe I want to do. Like I had so my story is set 20 years after World War III with superheroes. And I was like, well, World War III with superheroes, that was the backdrop. But as I was planning out the world history and creating the characters that fought in the war, the villains, I was like, dude, I'm just writing another story. All right, that's going to be a prequel. And I was almost like, dude, I'm afraid that like people are going to be more interested in what happened in the past and the present. But I was like, you know what? If I'm interested in it, hopefully someone else will be. And if not, if that's okay, if they still want the past stuff, I plan on writing it. But obviously I got to get this one out first. Because
Well,
if I release 5 books at once.
Yeah. I got to write the annual for Frank's comic, Caribbean the 100, which takes place before his comic.
Oh, yeah?
And he said, I want it end here, start kind of here. Go.
Okay, gotcha.
So I got to play in this.
That's fun.
It was so fun, man.
Yeah. I have that's I guess another thing too when I'm reading comics is I'm always like I want to fill in gaps here. So if you told me which characters I want to write, that's a different question. But then if I were to think and I'm like, which gaps do I want to fill in continuity?
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. Like I'll be like, oh, this character is missing from this issue to this issue. What did they do? That's what Claremont's been doing. Is he's been like, what happened in this gap? Well, I'll fill it in. And I'm like, you don't even. But but if it's good, so like there's stuff like that where it's like, oh, who's this character that appeared for 5 seconds? Oh, they kind of look cool. Maybe I'll write something there. I think the problem with a lot of prequels have going into, and it's a balance, is over explaining stuff. I think the consensus among a lot of Wolverine fans, for example, is they didn't want to know his backstory. Like they wanted to know bits and pieces. It's almost like they wanted to know. Like every time you would get it. That's another thing when I was reading the original stuff that I found fascinating is that Wolverine. I was always under the impression that it was all mysterious past, but I am all like this, like 15 years into the run, and they've never mentioned that he has amnesia or that he has a mysterious past. He just has a past that hasn't been revealed. It's not like they're saying, "Oh, we don't know anything about him." It's just we just don't know anything about him. It's not like they just didn't tell us, you know. And I find that stuff really fascinating.
Well, that was the best part about Wolverine when, maybe Professor X took a dive in there. He knows, but okay, you two know. That's good. I'm not going to tell them. That's all you have to have. And now he's just just what you want him as.
Yeah. He was also a character that could work in any setting. You know, you had espionage, spy stories with him. You have stories where he's like a savage in the jungle, like in the Savage Land, like that jungle adventure storyline. You have like crime-centric stories with Patch. You had he's a character that can, and I understand why he's so popular. How Days of Future Past, you have him in like this post-apocalypse. Like he's a character that you could thrust into like any setting, and he can work. I think that's why a military setting you want to throw him in. He's a character that is so versatile. He's one of the most versatile comic book characters I think out there, and it's no wonder because even though I love the X-Men, I don't even think it's necessary. And people go, that makes him the best. The reason he's the best and has the solo stuff, or he has the solo stuff because he's the best. And I love Wolverine. He's not my personal favorite. I'm not saying he's not one of my favorites. He is, but the reason I think he'll always be more popular and have more stories than say Cyclops is Cyclops is created to be that leader archetype. Wolverine is a character that can work in any environment, and so he's always going to have more that they could do with him than say some of my favorites like Nightcrawler or like my top 3 are probably Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Shadowcat are probably my top 3. Although I do love, like, if I were to rattle them off, like Havoc, Archangel, would be some others, Storm. I mean, I do love Wolverine. I think Forge is very underrated. Also, there's a lot of underrated characters. Banshee, I think, is underappreciated too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it just kind of got dropped off at the middle of nowhere, you know.
Yeah. He just kind of disappears for 100 issues.
Disappeared, yeah.
It's great.
But yes, that's the thing. You can make someone disappear for 100 issues, and if you keep them entertained, they'll be like, "Well, you'll come back." Know. Well, but that could be a character. Well, actually, no, I can't really write anything he did in that gap. I mean, I guess I can, but like he doesn't have powers for like 100 issues, so yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's so much I could do. That's the thing, and I think I wanted to create something that inspired other people to have conversations the way I have. Like, oh, how would you write these characters? Because I want to write them, but I would be down to have other people, kind of like what you said, where you were given instructions. Oh, I have to be in this time frame. I would love to give writers stuff and say, hey, here are the parameters. Go crazy. I think people need parameters, but I think people there. It's and again that comes to the whole creative process. Is I want to give artists, okay, here are your parameters. And eventually, I'd love to hire writers.
You have to. You can't just carte blanche because, 12 pages turns into, it ends in, 2052, and I go, dude, it's only 12 pages, it's all, but that's how it is. So parameters, discipline is not, the breaker of creativity. It's, it can hone it, but, when you just let it run, an artist gets in his own head and forget it. You don't even want to follow that rabbit hole sometimes. So, parameters and discipline about it, do help, a lot. I know for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it just in general, and even just keeping a sense of continuity. But I would love to do parameters, but also hiring people. But I have all these big ideas, right? But it's realizing I'm my own. If I'm my own publishing, yes, I get all the creativity. It also means I get all the work and the responsibility.
Sure.
So I was always like, why doesn't everyone self-publish? And then I was like, okay, I get it. It's a lot of work.
I've been doing the editing for this podcast for 5 years because we're going on 6. I get it. So we're at 434 episodes out, and I got a lot in the hopper. So it's that kind of thing of the indie market gets it, and they understand it's going to take them a while to do it. Just give them time. But, it's also everybody I've found in the indie market is very open and helpful.
Yes. A lot of uplifting because we get it with each other. A lot of people. Yeah.
Like we always say, but a rising tide lifts all ships. And
Absolutely.
That's what we try to do on here is just try to make sure everybody has a nice platform for them to get their ideas out and get their thoughts. And it's a lot better than something that you would see like on TV, which is segmented. We spoke for like a half hour, man. Oh, they had 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't get cut off. You have time to expand your thought, and really, I think it helps fans connect to you because they can say, "Oh no, I checked out that podcast. I want to go help his Kickstarter. I want to go help his FundMyComic."
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been great.
Oh, we love having you.
It's our pleasure, man. You're welcome on anytime. You have something you want to talk about, just send me a line. And we'll have you back on because this is going to continue to be a hub for indie content creators of all sorts. We are going to continue forward with a lot of plans at Projangers and Wall Hangers and a lot of good things to be coming. So there's going to be a lot of stuff in the future. Loved having you on, Vaughn. And where can the people find you?
The people can find me. And by the way, you guys are welcome to my show too. And if you need anything, just let me know. That's indie creators should be doing. Networking is everything. But you can find me, my socials, just my name, Vaughn Coleman. Also, Rebel Oasis is the name of my company, Rebel Oasis Studios. So I have socials for that. I have socials for myself, Vaughn Coleman. My YouTube channel is Vaughn Coleman. You can go to rebeloasisstudios.com where you can find that sign-up page that links to the campaign page. rebeloasis.com. I do want to make a full website. So that URL will be in use whether you're watching this podcast later on and there's a website or whether you're watching it now. So go to rebeloasisstudios.com. Check out the campaign page on FundMyComic for Phenomenova. It's Phenomenon plus Nova. So Phenomenova, that is the name of my comic. I don't know if I even mentioned that yet.
Cool.
You haven't, but I've been checking out Phenomenova this entire time. I had it up here.
I didn't even talk about the comic. I'm sorry. I was so into whatever we were talking about.
But that's I'll have images of your comic added in the video on the final cut. And I mean, looking through the variant covers you have on here, the amazing artwork the artwork's fantastic. But even though you're just showing the art on there and not what you wrote, I can tell it flows nicely. You showed maybe two panel pages, and then there's a nice page on the bottom. So you give them a lot of stuff, enticing them to really, hey, I'm going to keep giving you this. And what is the premise of Phenomenova?
Yeah, so set 20 years after World War III, the idealistic son of a war hero is struck by lightning while holding a mysterious crystal, and he finds himself awakening with lightning powers and super speed. And he decides he wants to use those powers to become like the brave heroes that fought in the war, but finds himself in way over his head when he attempts to intervene at a heist at a nuclear reactor, fighting a supervillain that's totally out of his league. In issue 1, I wanted him to have a makeshift costume. I decided as I was writing it that I felt like he hadn't earned the right to be a superhero, and eventually he will. So the superhero's name is Galvanite. Phenomenova is going to be the name of the team he joins. Imagine if Spider-Man in his first outing had a makeshift costume, gets beaten up by the villain, and he ends up being taken in by a Justice League member and trained to be part of the Teen Titans. Like, that's kind of what I'm going for. So he is going to be trained by a veteran of World War III, a veteran superhero, to become a member of a team of superheroes. So, but in issue 1, I wanted to focus on the main origin story. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie is like a huge influence. I think it's a perfect origin story. And I felt a lot of indie creators throw all their ideas in issue 1, and as a result, you don't take the time to care. I wanted, if I can't get you to care about one character, and I wanted to give you a solid chunk in the first issue, then what's the point? So that was what I decided to do. And yeah.
I think just from the stuff you show people on the FundMyComic website, I think they're going to instantly click, because especially after this podcast, not going and strickening yourself to one time period or another is a very smart move, and it allows people to check their brains at the door. And all right, so the world had another war, and then they got superheroes. All right, I'm fucking down. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I decided not to constrain myself to the politics and whatever of the real world, and I decided a fake worlds are better.
Oh yeah,
let's be honest, they're better.
100% better. So we'll have you back on. I like to end off this podcast the same damn way, kiddies. We love you. We miss you. We want to see you next time. Until then, game on, boys and girls. Bye-bye.
Play on my channel.
And that's a show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on.
Man.
That was
My
great.
pleasure.
That was
My
a lot
pleasure.
of fun. So where can I find you guys?
Projangers and wall hangers. We are facebook.com/PJANDWH, or you can go to PJANDWH.com.
What is it?
PJANDWH.com.
And that, getting back to your point, you said you have 400 something episodes. That was another thing I had to realize is no one is we're gonna be getting new fans. You may think, oh, I've gotten everyone I could possibly get. That's not the case. You'll always be getting new people.
No, our YouTube numbers keep me very humble.
What are your YouTube numbers?
Let me pull that up.
63. That's okay. All you have to do is keep it going. Oh yeah, Luke Stone. If you need anyone else, I know people that could probably bring more people your way.
Hey man, if you know anybody, send them over. I'd love to have them all on. That's what this podcast is for.
Yeah, expanding the market is always key. Always key. But thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks, man.
And if you need anything else, let me know.
Absolutely, man.
All right, have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I'll say hi to Mark for you. Bye.